I am a hardworking software developer in my mid-30s, married to Diana for 8 wonderful years. At least that is what I thought, until everything came crashing down. My cousin Jackson, practically a brother to me, since childhood was always welcome in our home. Looking back, the signs were there. Late nights, secretive phone calls, and unexplained absences. Nothing prepared me for walking into our bedroom and finding them together. Worse was her reaction, bragging she would take half of everything I owned. Let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button to join me on this journey of betrayal and unexpected justice. If you have ever been blindsided by someone you trusted completely, you will want to hear how this story unfolds. I grew up in Seattle with big dreams and a strong work ethic. My parents taught me the value of persistence, which helped me build my career in the tech industry from the ground up. I started as an entry-level programmer and worked my way to becoming a senior developer at one of the leading software companies in the Pacific Northwest. I met Diana at a charity gala 6 years ago. She stood out immediately, not just because of her striking appearance with her auburn hair and confident smile, but because she was passionately discussing the importance of supporting local education initiatives. While others networked for business opportunities, she seemed genuinely invested in the cause. I introduced myself, and we connected instantly over our shared love of classic films and hiking the mountain trails outside the city. Our courtship was everything I had hoped for in a relationship. Diana was smart, ambitious, and seemed to share my values about building a meaningful life together. We would spend weekends exploring hidden waterfalls in the Cascades or having deep conversations over coffee about our dreams for the future. She told me about her career in marketing, how she had risen to an executive position but felt unfulfilled and wanted to pursue her passion for interior design. I admired her courage to consider changing careers to follow her heart. After 18 months of dating, I proposed during a sunset hike to our favorite viewpoint overlooking the city. Diana cried as she said yes. And I remember thinking I had never been happier than in that moment planning our future together. We had an intimate wedding ceremony in a small vineyard in Napa Valley. Only 50 guests, our closest friends and family. Jackson served as my best man, delivering a speech that brought tears to my eyes when he talked about how happy he was to see me find someone so perfect. Diana looked radiant in her simple white dress, and the sunset cast a golden glow over everything, seeming like a good omen for our life together. After the wedding, we purchased our dream home in a quiet suburb. It was a 2-story craftsman, with a wraparound porch, and enough space to eventually raise children. Diana took charge of decorating, turning it into a showcase that perfectly balanced comfort and style. I was proud of her talent, and supported her decision to start her own interior design business. I handled our finances, investing wisely to build security for our future, while Diana managed the day-to-day expenses. As my career advanced, I received a significant promotion to senior developer. The increased income allowed us to live more comfortably, though I noticed Diana becoming increasingly focused on material possessions. What started as occasional splurges turned into regular shopping sprees for designer clothes and expensive furniture. When I gently questioned some purchases, she would say things like, "We deserve to enjoy your success," or "This is what successful couples do." Not wanting to create tension, I simply worked harder to accommodate our growing expenses. Jackson had always been more like a brother than a cousin to me. Orphaned at 12 when his parents died in a car accident, he lived with my family through his teenage years. Though he moved out for college, we remained extremely close. He became a regular fixture in our home, joining us for Sunday dinners and holidays. Diana seemed to genuinely enjoy his company, often insisting he come over when he was feeling down or celebrating a milestone. I was grateful they got along so well, never suspecting there might be another reason for her enthusiasm about his visits. Looking back, there were warning signs I chose to ignore. Diana would sometimes make comments about friends whose husbands had provided them with luxury vacations or expensive jewelry. She began comparing our lifestyle to those of wealthier couples we knew. When I suggested we focus on saving more for the future rather than spending, she would become distant or subtly critical of my ambition. Still, I trusted her completely. We shared passwords to our accounts, maintained transparency about our finances, and made major decisions together. When my father was diagnosed with cancer last year, Diana seemed supportive, comforting me through long nights of worry and accompanying me on hospital visits. She would often suggest I take Jackson out for drinks afterward, to decompress, volunteering to stay with my mother during those times. I believed her generosity showed her compassion, never suspecting she had other motives for wanting us out of the house. 3 weeks before everything fell apart, we celebrated our anniversary at an upscale restaurant downtown. I had arranged for a special tasting menu and brought a pair of sapphire earrings that matched her eyes. While she smiled and thanked me, I noticed something different in her expression, a distance I could not explain. When I asked if everything was okay, she squeezed my hand and said she was just tired from working on a big project. I believed her, as I always did. I had planned a business trip to San Francisco for the following week, an important conference where I was scheduled to present. At the last minute, technical issues with our latest product release demanded my attention, and I had to cancel. I never told Diana about the change in plans, figuring I would surprise her by being home when she thought I was away. That decision would change everything. The day I discovered the truth started like any other. I woke up early, kissed Diana goodbye as she slept, and headed to the office. Around noon, a splitting migraine hit me, something that rarely happened. After trying unsuccessfully to power through it, my team lead suggested I go home and rest. I texted Diana that I was coming home sick, but never received a reply. As I pulled into our driveway at 2 in the afternoon, I noticed a familiar vehicle parked near our house. It was Jackson's dark blue Jeep, which seemed odd since Diana had mentioned she would be shopping with friends that day. Still, I thought perhaps she had finished early and invited him over, or maybe he had stopped by to borrow something while she was out. I entered the house quietly, not wanting to wake Diana if she was taking a nap. The downstairs was empty, but I heard muffled sounds coming from upstairs, followed by laughter I recognized as Diana's. As I climbed the stairs, the sounds became clearer, and a sickening realization began to form in my mind. Standing in the doorway of our bedroom, the bedroom where we had shared so many intimate moments, I froze. Diana and Jackson were in our bed, so engrossed in each other, they did not notice me at first. The wedding portrait of Diana and me stared down from the wall, a cruel witness to this betrayal. My stomach lurched as if I had been physically struck, and I must have made a sound because they suddenly looked up. The next few moments exist in my memory like a series of disjointed photographs. Jackson scrambling for his clothes, his face, a mixture of shame and fear. Diana, however, showed neither. After the initial shock passed, her expression hardened into something I had never seen before, a cold calculation that chilled me more than the act itself. "You were supposed to be at work," she said, as if I was the one who had done something wrong by coming home to my own house. We moved downstairs to the living room after they dressed a surreal procession of 3 people whose lives were unraveling in real time. I sat across from them, hands shaking, trying to process what was happening. How long I managed to ask, my voice, barely recognizable to my own ears. Diana looked at Jackson, then back at me. 14 months, she said without a trace of remorse. 14 months. Over a year of deception, while I worked long hours to build what I thought was our future. Over a year of intimate family dinners, where they had exchanged glances across the table while I remained oblivious. Over a year of Diana suggesting I spend time with Jackson, creating opportunities for them to be together when I was gone. What came next was even more devastating. Diana did not cry or apologize. Instead, she laughed, a sound that seemed to come from a stranger wearing my wife's face. "I guess this saves me the trouble of figuring out how to tell you I want a divorce," she said, crossing her legs calmly, as if discussing a minor change of plans. Jackson at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Angelo, man, I am sorry it happened this way," he began, but I cut him off. "You are sorry it happened this way. Not sorry it happened at all," I asked, incredulous at his attempt to minimize what they had done. He looked down at his hands. "You always had everything, Angelo. The perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect wife. Some of us were not so lucky." His words stunned me. I had helped him countless times over the years, loaned him money, helped him find jobs, invited him into my home, and this was how he saw me, as someone to envy and resent, rather than as the family who had supported him. Diana stood up and moved to the bar cart, pouring herself a drink, as if we were having a normal social gathering. "I have been talking to a lawyer for months," she said casually. "We will need to sell the house, of course, and split the proceeds. Same with your investments and retirement accounts." I stared at her, unable to comprehend how the woman I had loved for so long could transform into this cold stranger. "You planned this," I said slowly. "This was not just an affair. This was calculated." She smiled, a predatory expression that made my skin crawl. "Marriage is a financial arrangement, Angelo. Did you really think I was happy playing housewife while you worked all the time I married you because you were stable and ambitious? But now I am ready for the next chapter. She pulled out her phone and showed me a document. I have been keeping track of all our assets. The house is worth 1.2 million now. Your stock options from the company are worth about 800,000. Retirement accounts add another 400,000. She recited the numbers like a banker reviewing a portfolio. Washington is a community property state. That means I get half of everything, even your future earnings from stock options granted during our marriage. The casual way she discussed dismantling our life together, as if it were simply a business to liquidate, broke something inside me. I looked at Jackson, who could not meet my eyes. And what is your role in this? Just the entertainment while she waits to cash out, I asked him. Diana answered for him. Jackson and I understand each other. He sees my value in ways you never did. I laughed bitterly. Your value? You mean the value of what you can take from me? Her eyes narrowed. I put up with you for 8 years. I listened to your boring work stories, played the supportive wife, and entertained your friends and family. I earned half of everything you have. I grabbed my keys and wallet, needing to escape, before I said or did something I would regret. At the door, Diana called after me. Do not bother trying to hide assets, Angelo. My lawyer will find everything, and judges do not look kindly on that kind of behavior. I drove aimlessly for hours before checking into a hotel room where I finally allowed myself to break down. The pain was physical, like something tearing inside my chest. I could not eat or sleep, replaying every moment of our marriage, questioning every memory. Had any of it been real? Had she ever loved me at all? Around midnight, I called the only person I thought might understand, my friend Marcus, who had gone through a difficult divorce 2 years earlier. He listened patiently as I poured out the whole ugly story. I am so sorry, man, he said when I finally finished. What she did is terrible. But right now you need to think clearly and protect yourself. What do you mean, I asked, still foggy with grief and shock. Did you sign a prenuptial agreement, he asked. And that was the moment everything changed. A prenuptial agreement. I repeated the question, triggering a distant memory. Actually, yes. Before we got married, my company attorney suggested it because of my stock options. Diana and I signed it, but she told me it was just a formality that would never matter. Marcus's voice became urgent. Find that document. Now. It could change everything. After hanging up, I tried to remember where I would have stored such an important document. It would not be at the house where Diana could find and destroy it. Then I remembered the safe deposit box at my bank, where I kept my passport, birth certificate, and other critical documents. First thing the next morning, I visited the bank. Inside the safe deposit box, I found the prenuptial agreement signed and notarized 6 years earlier. Reading through it with fresh eyes, I discovered it contained strong protections for assets brought into the marriage and any appreciation of those assets. Diana had signed it willingly, probably never expecting it to be enforced. That discovery gave me hope, but I needed more. If Diana had been calculating enough to plan her exit strategy for months, she might find a way to challenge the prenup. I needed evidence of her betrayal and financial deception. I contacted a digital security expert who helped me recover deleted messages from our shared cloud account. What I found was staggering. Hundreds of messages between Diana and Jackson dating back more than a year, discussing not just their affair, but their plans for after the divorce. In one particularly damning exchange, Diana told Jackson how she had been slowly transferring money from our joint savings account to a private account in her name. Once we file for divorce, I will get half of everything, on paper, she had written. But this extra money is insurance. Our home security system provided another source of evidence. I had installed cameras in the common areas for safety, never imagining I would need to review the footage for evidence of betrayal. The timestamps showed Jackson visiting our home frequently when I was at work, sometimes staying for hours. I also discovered credit card statements Diana had hidden from me, showing lavish purchases she had made for herself and Jackson. Designer clothes, expensive restaurant meals, even a weekend getaway to Vancouver while I was at a conference in Austin. All paid for with our joint funds. Most disturbing of all, I found a detailed list on her laptop documenting all my assets, accounts, and investments, with notes about which ones would be easiest to claim in a divorce. She had been meticulously planning this for longer than I could have imagined. Armed with this information, I consulted Catherine Williams, a divorce attorney who specialized in high-asset cases. After reviewing my evidence and the prenuptial agreement, she looked up at me with the first smile I had seen in days. "Mr. Moretti, your wife made a critical mistake," Catherine said. "This prenuptial agreement is solid, and her documented infidelity and financial misconduct will make it even stronger." In Washington, while infidelity does not automatically impact asset division, financial deception, and misuse of marital funds, absolutely does. We developed a strategy. Rather than confronting Diana immediately, we would wait for her to make the first move. Catherine advised me to secure my most important financial accounts without emptying joint accounts, which could look vindictive to a judge. I opened new accounts at different banks, redirected my direct deposit, and changed passwords on all my important accounts. There was one more person I needed to talk to. Jackson's wife, Amy, deserved to know the truth. I met her for coffee, bringing copies of the evidence that could not be denied. She was devastated, but ultimately grateful to finally understand why her marriage had been deteriorating. "I knew something was wrong," Amy said through tears. "He kept making excuses for coming home late, saying he was with you." Amy agreed to coordinate our legal strategies, strengthening both our positions. With her help, we uncovered joint purchases Jackson and Diana had made, planning for a future together using marital funds. 2 days later, Diana filed for divorce, demanding half of all assets, just as she had threatened. Her petition painted me as a workaholic who had neglected the marriage, claiming she deserved substantial compensation for supporting my career. She even had the audacity to request temporary spousal support while the divorce proceeded. When her attorney served me with papers, I maintained a neutral expression, simply accepting the documents without comment. Diana mistook my calm for defeat. That evening, she called to suggest we handle this reasonably and avoid unnecessary conflict. The condescension in her voice made it clear she expected me to roll over. The next day, Catherine filed our response, along with a comprehensive counter-petition. It included the prenuptial agreement evidence of the affair, documentation of financial misconduct, and testimony from Amy and others. We also filed for a forensic accounting of the funds Diana had diverted. Diana was at our house packing some of her clothes when she was served with our counter-petition. According to our security camera, she opened the thick envelope in the living room, her expression changing from confidence to shock as she realized what she was reading. She immediately called her lawyer, her voice rising in panic as she paced back and forth. An hour later, my phone exploded with calls and messages from both Diana and Jackson. I declined them all, following Catherine's advice to communicate only through our attorneys. Instead, I sent a single text: "All communication should go through legal counsel from this point forward." Later that night, Diana showed up at my hotel room, somehow convincing the front desk to tell her my room number. When I opened the door, she looked nothing like the confident woman who had bragged about taking half my assets. Her makeup was smeared, and her hands trembled. "You cannot do this to me," she said, trying to push past me into the room. I blocked the doorway. "I am not doing anything to you, Diana. These are the consequences of your own actions." "That prenup was just a formality," she insisted, echoing her words from years ago. "A legally binding formality," I replied. "You should leave now." As she turned to go, she played her last card. "Jackson never loved you. Like a brother," she spat. "He always resented you. We laughed about how blind you were." I closed the door without responding. Her words were meant to hurt me, and they did. But they also confirmed that I was making the right decision. These were not people who deserved any place in my life. The legal proceedings moved surprisingly quickly after that. The judge reviewed the evidence and ruled that the prenuptial agreement was valid and enforceable. Diana's claims of emotional distress were dismissed based on the evidence of her long-planned betrayal. The forensic accounting revealed she had diverted nearly $70,000 of our joint funds to her secret account. The final judgment stated that Diana would receive only what was outlined in the prenuptial agreement, a lump sum far smaller than the half she had expected. She would be required to return the diverted funds and pay a portion of my legal fees. The judge specifically cited her documented pattern of deception in the ruling. Jackson faced his own consequences. Amy filed for divorce, and with the evidence we had gathered, she received a favorable settlement. He lost his job after his employer learned he had been using company time for his affair, often calling in sick on days that matched Diana's security footage. Most painfully for him, our extended family turned away when the details of his betrayal came to light. When the legal battle ended, I expected to feel victorious. Instead, I felt hollow, grieving not just for my failed marriage, but for the years I had invested in people who had never truly valued me. The betrayal by the two people I had trusted most left me questioning my own judgment. I began seeing a therapist to process the complex emotions of betrayal, grief, and anger. Dr. Enza Saft. Lyndon helped me understand that Diana and Jackson's actions reflected their character flaws, not my worthiness of love and loyalty. Those early sessions were painful, forcing me to confront not just the betrayal but the ways I had ignored warning signs and compromised my own needs to maintain harmony. You cannot control the actions of others, Doctor. Lyndon told me during one particularly difficult session. But you can learn from this experience and establish healthier boundaries in the future. I sold our house, unable to live with the memories it contained. Finding a smaller place closer to downtown gave me the fresh start I needed. I purged most of the furniture Diana had chosen, donating it to a shelter for families starting over after difficult situations. There was something cathartic about turning the symbols of my pain into resources for others seeking new beginnings. Over the months that followed, I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my marriage. Diana had subtly isolated me from people who had once been important to me, another red flag I had missed. My friend Tony convinced me to join a hiking group, getting me back into the mountains that had always brought me peace. Surprisingly, Amy and I developed a cautious friendship, bonded by our shared experience of betrayal. We met occasionally for coffee, comparing notes on our healing journeys. Unlike Diana, Amy was genuine and straightforward, qualities I now recognized and valued more deeply. Sometimes I wonder if I will ever trust anyone again, I admitted to her 6 months after the divorce was finalized. She nodded in understanding. I wonder that too. But I think not trusting would mean they win. You know, they would have taken that from us too. Those words stayed with me, a reminder that maintaining my capacity for trust, albeit with greater wisdom, represented its own form of victory. At work, I channeled my energy into new projects, earning recognition for innovations that might have gone undeveloped had I remained caught in Diana's materialistic expectations. My team lead Jennifer noticed the change in me. You seem more present now, she observed during my performance review. Your contributions have always been valuable, but there is a creativity and focus in your work that was not there before. She was right. Without the pressure to maintain Diana's lifestyle, and the constant drain of living with someone who secretly resented me, I found new enjoyment in my work and greater clarity in my thinking. The first time I felt genuine happiness again was during a team celebration for a successful product launch. Surrounded by colleagues who appreciated my contributions and valued my friendship for itself, not for what they could gain from it, I realized I was laughing without reservation for the first time in nearly a year. Gradually, I developed a keener sense for recognizing authenticity in others. I became more attentive to inconsistencies between words and actions, not from paranoia, but from a healthier self-protective instinct. I learned to value actions over promises, consistency over grand gestures. Diana and Jackson did not receive forgiveness from me, at least not in the sense of welcoming them back into my life. But I did eventually reach a point where thoughts of them no longer dominated my mind or disrupted my peace. The most important forgiveness was toward myself for missing the warning signs and for believing I somehow deserved their betrayal. A year after the divorce, I unexpectedly ran into a former colleague, Sarah, at a bookstore. We had worked together briefly years earlier before she moved to another company. Our conversation flowed easily as we caught up over coffee, marked by genuine interest and respectful boundaries. When she suggested meeting again, I felt both caution and hope, a combination that represented progress in my healing. The greatest lesson from this painful chapter was not about protecting assets or winning legal battles, though those were important. It was about recognizing that my worth was never dependent on Diana's assessment of me or Jackson's loyalty. Success is not measured by material possessions or even relationship status, but by integrity, resilience, and the capacity to remain open to authentic connection despite past wounds. If you have ever experienced betrayal by those closest to you, I want you to know that healing is possible. The path is not linear, and some days will feel like steps backward. But with time and intention, the pain loses its sharp edges, becoming part of your story rather than defining it. What was your experience with betrayal, and how did you find your way forward? Share your story in the comments below to help others who might be struggling with similar pain. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life experiences. Remember to share this video with someone who might need to hear that they can survive betrayal and build something better on the other side. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength and wisdom on yours.